Hi, welcome to Fully Alive Chats About Qigong. I'm Tim Franklin.
Hi, and I'm Barry Smale.
Some of the things we chat about, Barry, when we're teaching the classes is about the difference between relaxation and collapsing. And I just wanted to chat with you about that today so it can make it maybe a bit clearer for other people that aren't sure about the difference between relaxing and collapsing and why those things might be important.
Yeah, I mean, it is important. And obviously, when I'm talking, it sounds like I'm saying it to you, but obviously, I know you know all this stuff, just going through it for other people. I mean, it is important because one of the ways that you can definitely stop energy flow is if you want to stop energy flowing, just physically tense, yeah, like that, yeah. You can really tense your structure, yeah. So it's very important that you're not tensing. Yeah? But then the difference between relaxing and collapsing, I suppose I think of it as is whether you lose your structure or not. So if I demonstrate with this hand here, that is tense, yeah? I mean, you may not be able to see that, but that's tense. But the structure is like that. If I relax, the structure stays the same, but there's much less muscular effort in there. I'm not trying to keep my hand there, yeah? But then if you go to a collapsing, you lose the structure. And so it's easy to see that with a hand, yeah? So there's tensing, kind of relaxing, and it goes into collapsing. So it's where the muscles, they're not doing any more than they need to keep the structure in place. Whatever structure you've decided to hold, that could be obviously in three circle stance, or it could be just in Wuji, yeah? And it's one of the skills. It's one of the skills ultimately that you get better at, but is useful to understand the distinction between relaxing and collapsing. You don't want to be collapsing. Yeah? There's a lot of, in a lot of the classics, there's a lot of kind of strange language about, I mean, they talk about the dangers, but it really means, you know, the unhelpfulness of collapsing. You know, so they talk in flowery language, yeah. But in the end, it's just doing that, not that. And that's the way I look at it anyway. What about you?
Yeah, I do look at it in exactly the same way. And if somebody was listening to this just on an audio rather than the visual as well, it'd be like, well, what does that look like for me and feel like for me if I was, say, sitting up or standing up or laying down? Well, if you imagine that you've just come home from a hard day's work, lots of, whether or not it's physical, emotional, mental work, you've come home and you just feel pooped. Yeah, you get one of those days where it's just like, do you know what? I just need to collapse on the sofa. And you sit down, and as you go towards the sofa, you don't quite have enough energy to hold you up. So the moment just before you go to sit down, before your bottom or your thighs touch the sofa, you literally fall onto it, and your whole body goes into a slumber. And that's collapsing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in contrast, if you were to go to Buckingham Palace and see the guards outside Buckingham Palace, and they've got to stand there for a long period of time, and I don't know exactly how they do that, but it looks like they're standing more to attention. And so if you're having like military training, you might be more, that's it, and standing much more upright, where you literally hold yourself fixed into a position. And if you hold yourself fixed into a position for any length of time, one, that's going to take a lot of efforting and a lot of energy and a lot of focus. And you'd have to do a lot of training in order, I imagine, to be able to stand outside Buckingham Palace for a long time in that absolute fixed position. And in Qigong, we're not looking for that fixed position. We're looking at that somewhere between position. It's neither trying to hold yourself into physical tension or allowing yourself to slumber onto the sofa where you fall to the floor in a collapse. And you're right, they do talk in the classics about, in sometimes it could seem like flowery language, but of course, if you were trained that way, it would be meaningful to you, but we read the translations and it doesn't really mean much to us. But if someone was to say to you from like the Western point of view, look, if you collapse on a daily level, that means your lungs aren't going to work so well.
Yeah.
Yeah? If you collapse on a daily level and you slump into your stomach, then all your organs aren't going to be able to work so well because you can't get the blood flow, can't get the information, they can't process as they do. So you've interrupted the processing that is happening in your body. And that's why when you come to an upwriting, what we call upwriting, fully alive, made up words that we have, which is upwriting, upwriting becomes a process of relaxing where you're not collapsing nor holding yourself. And in that processing, energy and information can flow much more freely, which means the body can process much better and work much better. Would that be a fair description?
No, absolutely. And it's really interesting because as you were talking about the guardsman kind of standing straight, is that as that came into my mind, I could feel my lungs restricting. You know, it's like, oh my God, you know, you wouldn't want to do that for any period of time. Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because we go through periods of time where we use different kinds of language. But one of the things which was a game changer, I think, for us as fully alive, was that phrase, the absence of unnecessary tension. And it was like, oh no, do you know what? That's exactly it. Yeah. It's the absence of any unnecessary tension. Yeah. So obviously if you're standing in 3 circle stance, you know, there's an element of muscular involvement in that. But the absence of any unnecessary, you get more skillful. Yeah. At the absence of unnecessary tension. And we play all kinds of games, don't we, with that and that. And in the classes, you know, you can talk and talk and talk about this. And hopefully this talking, if somebody's interested in Qigong, is giving them a bit more of an idea about what that standing in Wuji is like. Yeah. But in the end, what we're trying to do in classes is give people an experience of it, where you go to, yeah, like that's tensing, yeah, and then that's collapsing, and then that's relaxing, which is neither tensing nor collapsing, and you can see them, can't you? You can take them through a little exercise, and then they go, oh right, oh, all right. Oh, right, yeah, it does. Yeah, now it's obvious.
Oh.
Now I've got it. Oh, I could apply that theoretically to anything that I do, yeah? So, which is very beautiful. I love it when I see people do that because it's like, I mean, for me, you know, you've done your job as a teacher then, yeah? You've got something across to them. And they talk about heart-to-heart transmission. And you know, there's various levels of that, but at the simplest level, it's where somebody hasn't just got it in their intellect, but actually they've got it. Yeah. And it's been lovely hearing the stories about people getting it. And we had that interesting question from that lady the other day. I think it was a lady, I can't remember now actually. And she's clearly been getting it. Yeah, been doing the Wednesdays, I think, and the Friday class. She's been clearly getting it. Yeah. And then she said, "Oh, so I love it. You know, when I train with you and you guide us through, you know, and oh my God, it's so relaxing, and I really feel the energy flow. But then when I do it on my own, it isn't quite the same as that. Yeah, how do I get it to be the same as when I'm training with you?" And I don't think we've answered her yet. So we will.
But I will answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will answer it. But if you happen to be listening to this or watching this video, this is the answer to that.
Well, here comes the answer. That's right. So when you're talking about absence of unnecessary tension, that thing that we've been describing for some years now, that works in all things you do. The other thing that came out of that out of unnecessary efforting. So you've got the absence of unnecessary tension and then the absence of unnecessary efforting. Because when we learn something new, first of all, there's this part of our mind, our brain, that is efforting in order to try and remember what we're doing or what you're doing. There's a part of your body that's efforting to try and get it right. And then there's the part of the sort of the emotions as well of, oh, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? And all of this is going on for most people most of the time, if they've not got a practice or a teacher that's leading them through where they can release unnecessary tension and release unnecessary effort or guide them on that.
Yeah.
When we're in classes or courses or we're teaching people or sharing information, there's a part of them that can switch off from all of that and let our voice go with them. Yeah. So when that happens, there's the aspect of them that doesn't need to work out anything that we're saying. They just follow the instructions, and they are already in part of that like soup of experience that happens when you're being guided. And it's really lovely. And lots of people have now said to us, hey, Barry, hey, Tim, your voices are really nice when you're doing the qigong and things. Can you do a recording for us so I can listen to that as a meditation? I felt guided by you. And we go, well, commercially, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah. But actually, in terms of an experience for yourself and development of skills, you're much better off not listening to us as a guided meditation, even if it would be nice if it made commercial sense, because you can then build up that skill of just putting very little effort or tension into what you're doing. So there's an absence of unnecessary tension and unnecessary efforting, and it wouldn't matter what outcome you got, because measurably, what you get for us when we're leading you might be more powerful, but it may not actually be what you need in terms of what you get from a practice given your current skill levels is exactly what you need. And there's a tendency and almost like this temptation, because I like this feeling so much that I must get that feeling back every time I train. And if I don't, that means that something's not as good. Well, the thing to tell you is that as long as you're just relaxing physically, mentally, and emotionally when you're doing your practice, which is part of the fundamentals of Qigong, you will get everything that you need in terms of your practice. You're not worrying, you're relaxing. How powerful that feels actually really doesn't matter. If it feels more powerful than when you're with us, it might just be because you're not doing so much thinking. When you're practicing on your own, you might be doing more efforting because you're trying to get back to a certain feeling. But that's a bit like going on holiday. First time you go to a place, so amazing. And the next time you go back, you think, no, it's not as good as it was last time. What's changed? Well, the only thing that's changed is you. The place is still the same. It's how much of us we put into it. And in Qigong, actually, what it's trying to lead you to is to be free of that unnecessary efforting and tension. And then you can just enjoy your experience. So I know that's quite a long answer in order to do it. I mean, the short answer would be, don't worry about it. The answer that our Sifu gave us for pretty much everything was, yeah, don't worry about it. And then the next part was, just enjoy your practice. And then if we were going, but, it's just like, just do your practice. And don't worry. Yeah. So that's the short answer. And then the other one was a longer answer of the whys, really. So what about your...
No, that's a useful answer. I think it helps people not to chase an experience, yeah? And anyway, it's the nature of a human being to become habituated to an experience. So gradually, relatively, it feels less powerful, even though your skill is developing and actually more things are happening. But that is the basis of addiction, isn't it? It's like you have an experience and then you become habituated, so you start to chase the old experience, and then you become more habituated, so you have to chase even more. It goes into a horrible... And people do become chi flow addicts. We've seen them. Yeah, I think I myself was a bit of one at the beginning, because it's like, wow, this is just amazing, yeah. But you know, I have a profound love and respect for Sifu I've, because he didn't make it about him.
Mm.
Yeah? It's so easy as a teacher. It's so easy to make it about the teacher. Yeah. But what I loved about Sifu and what I love about the way that we, you know, are managing, it's not about us. You know. Yes, we could sell loads of, you know, clips of us, you know, talking, but it's really not about that. It's not about that. And you know, I love the fact that you mention it, and I love the fact that that's the way it is for us.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we'll teach, and we don't mind people giving us money for teaching them. That's a reasonable exchange, yeah. But actually, we know then they're better off going off and practicing, yeah. But come back when you want to learn some more things or you want to refresh. That's great, but don't rely on us, yeah.
No, and on one level, if somebody wanted to imagine we were there talking to them and that was helpful for them, they could do that anytime.
Yeah, and absolutely, because then that's their own skill. That's them using their mind to create that situation. Yeah, but there's not a sense I've got to reach out for something there. I mean, at the most fundamental, it's a very Buddhist practice. Yeah, I mean, it's just a sort of fundamental, not getting attached to whether the teacher's telling you to do it or not. Just no, get on with it. Honestly, you'll be fine. Yeah? You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answers for that. So hopefully that gives you all at home listening to this some more information about using Qigong and also the practical side of what it's like when you start practicing Qigong, because it does feel amazing. And it's very easy to get hooked on that amazing feeling. And then anything less than that might feel like it's just not good enough. Well, the practice, as Barry had said at the beginning, that absence of unnecessary tension and how to do that has become one of the most powerful understanding tools that we've used within the teaching, because it kind of wraps up and distills all of the Shaolin Cosmos Qigong training, really, doesn't it? And it just makes it so much easier for everybody. So thank you very much for joining us again for the Fully Live Qigong Chats. We'll see you again. I've been Tim Franklin.
I've been Barry Smith.
And we will continue to be so.
Yeah, probably, anyway.
Maybe.